Zarim, Tovim, and Lila Tov. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carrie. I'm going to wait for just a little bit here to see if I can join me today. And it's always a good platform. Some of it is just clarification for what's happened in my life or what's going on in my life. Some of it is just new revelation that has been coming in. And a lot of times it's meant to help assist in bringing forth information that we can apply, because really we can't do anything with new information if something is being presented to us and there's not a how to connect to it. Then it really kind of just puffs up the mind and puffs up our head instead of our hearts. Really, everything should be, if we're wanting to move and grow, should be from living from the heart center. So I kind of wanted to discuss things from the heart center and some of the real issues that are presenting themselves right now as struggles, because each and every one of us do struggle. Every single one of us has a wrestle. And to a degree, if we were to say as a blanket, we all are wrestling. Now it's going to take different facets of that wrestle. You know, your wrestle may not look exactly the same as mine, but nevertheless, it's a wrestle. And that is kind of where I'm at on some of this. And this is, can be more fine tuning, or this can be gargantuan wrestling. It just depends on that you've done. So I've been really focusing on the word trust lately. It keeps circling around. So if this word trust keeps circling around, then that means there's a reason for it, and there's a reason why it needs to be dealt with. So let's talk about what trust looks like in as far as the language goes. Trust is spelled bet, tet, chet, and the very first thing that you notice when you look at this word, so I'm not going to actually bring it up on the screen. There is a verse that I wanted to peruse over with you quickly, not exhaustive detail like I do on gatherings on the weekend or when I'm sharing with my friend Regina. Hello, Christopher. Nice to see you, my friend. But it's important that we see what these letters are saying to us with this word trust. So the very first letter is a bet. Now, there's several things that we can glean from this. The simple view of the word or the letter bet means inside. So if we're talking about trust, the very first letter is pointing the direction which trust is established on the inside. And bet is also a representation of the tent of our flesh suit. It is also a representation of the Bet Tov, the 222 journey. For those of you who may not know what that is, we've shared much about that, about the 222 journey, the two pass-throughs of the 22 letters of the two sacred languages of Hebrew and Aramaic that bring forth the divine masculine and the divine feminine into one tent, family on the inside. Hello, Jamie. So when we look at the letter bet, it's already pointing to us that this has to do something with our divine feminine and our divine masculine on the inside that is connected to the word trust. And then when we move to the next letter is tet. Now tet is the number that or the number and the letter that represents the wrestle. And it's a picture of a basket, and there's a representation of a snake or the nail. And really the snake is the way they've translated it. It's seraphim. So the seraphic message of learning how to deal with the system of duality and being able to connect to that which is going to pop you out into the letter of life. So it's very important that we see that part of trust is going to be wrestling in the system of duality, because it has to do what's going on in the inside of us between the masculine and the feminine. Shalom, Greg. Glad to have you here. So Batak Now we know that it's dealing with an inside. I gave you all the information of the bet and the tet, but inside wrestle. Then we get to the final letter, chet, which when you look on it on the basic level of looking at this letter, it means to separate or to divide. So when we're talking about separation, chet, we're wrestling on the inside because we're divided, we're separated. And this totally makes sense. So in our very own nature, because we've been divided into light and dark, right? The revelatory side, the shadow side, male and female with the divine energies that have been separated. We have this separate nature within us. It doesn't allow us to trust. This is like a huge epiphany for me because trust is the foundation of any relationship. But this letter, this word, the first letter is saying, bet, do you even trust yourself on the inside? Because if you're separated from your divine masculine and divine feminine, and you haven't brought them into oneness unity, they're not going to see the oneness within of your energies. So your energies have been divided within you, masculine and feminine. Hello, Sandy. Hi, Sean. I love you guys. I'm so glad you're here. Trust begins on the inside of yourself, but you're going to have to wrestle through it because you've been separated and divided. And hopefully that'll make sense. Because when you look at the word in its static form, because batach is static, it's potential energy. It hasn't been activated. There's no letters added or deleted. So it's just sitting in raw potential. So on the inside, you have a wrestle because you're separated. So if there is no trust being manifested on the outside, it's because you haven't found it on the inside. And that is because you are divided into the light and the dark. You haven't allowed your revelations and the light that is coming in to shine light on the shadow. And as I was sharing yesterday, the beast ego is your wounded inner child. It is your shadow. You're wrestling with it because it's trying to get your attention, because that wounded inner child has not learned to trust yet. What we have to do in our maturation, and I'm pointing all the fingers here back to me, guys. Like I said, this is a word that keeps going round and round and round and keeps coming back and surfacing. And it's surfaced several times because of some of these really intense wrestles. Yes, folks, I am wrestling as well, okay? My wrestle is your wrestle is my wrestle. I know that if I'm in a wrestle, she is in a wrestle. And every single one of you, there are fine-tuning, knob adjustments on the inside that we're all going through. And so I'm bringing mine out to you to say, hey, there is a very deep wrestle that I have had since I was a childhood, because it was imprinted in my DNA. And I have been digging and I've been rooting around and I've been trying to get rid of all of these different ones by the revelation, right? So let's think about Ken's teaching about the compass. So going around the compass into where we get more light is to shed Vitruvius Man. If you've seen things that I've been sharing and been staying on top of the sharings, where the light reaching out to the darkness is so that the light and the dark can connect. So the mature place of the revelation and the light is reaching to the inner child to show that there's safety in coming back home into oneness. Because what ends up happening is the wounded child is separated from that it doesn't trust. So your wounded child doesn't trust you. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? This is like revelation to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because the word batak, trust starts on the inside. So if your inner child from its wounds has not been dealt with, your shadow, it does not trust the higher self of you that comes in with all of this high revelation. You can't ignore it. Because what it'll happen is it's not, so trust needs to be manifested externally so we can have relationships that are built and bonded in trust. But it is almost impossible to establish that if you haven't found it within. So let's take this bigger, right? Because it's always micro to macro. And then we'll get into kind of the nuts and bolts as to why I'm sharing this. And yeah, there'll probably be tears. Because this stuff, when it comes and these revelations come for me, it's all of the adjustments necessary for me to continue my journey in self discovery, right? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the beast ego, tame it to bring it into the ego. Ego is not a bad thing, folks. Not at all. Hi, KJ. It's nice to have you here. And hi, TikTok. Nice to have you here as well. Joel, I appreciate it. And Joel, if you want to come on in and share your opinions and thoughts, you are welcome to do so. We just ask you would be kind in what you are sharing and will not be critical of others that are in the room, but to do it as a way as we're trying to lift humanity up, not tear it down by judging it, dividing it, separating it, and diminishing it. So if there is a comment that you want to say that is uplifting and edifying, or perhaps another way of looking at something, please feel free to share that, Joel. I'm not policing the chat room. I believe that we're all mature here and you guys can police yourself. Just be kind and loving. Different facets of the diamond are needed to be seen. So if you want to share, then share. So going back to this wrestle. Bet, tet, het. The wounded child needs to be addressed, guys. And shadow work is not pleasant. So I'm going to be very, very real and transparent here, because if I can't be real and transparent with you guys, how in the world can I expect you to do the same thing? My biggest wrestle has to do with finances. And it always has, and it has always tripped me up. Because every single time I spend money on anything, I get this rumbling, well, I could say terror, but terror is just like that. That's too intense of a word, but it used to be. What I'm saying is that I get this unsettling in me because I see it, and then the money goes out, and then there's that fear of lack that I'm not going to be. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of background history of where this was coming from and why it was so placed into my DNA and why the shadow keeps popping up, is that my family, divorced, remarried, and I was with my mother and my stepfather. And we went through some difficult times, in the 80s when there was some major crash stuff happening. My parents lost everything. I mean, they literally lost everything. We had a big, beautiful house in the West Hills in Redmond, Oregon, and it was gorgeous. It was like state of the art, latest, greatest, is when solar panels were coming about. And I mean, it was an incredible house. And there was so much room to play. Christmases in the house when I was a kid. We had this beautiful living room, sunken living room, and had this bay window kind of thing in the glass. I mean, it was like 20 feet up in the air. And we had a Christmas tree that was just as tall, right? And it was beautiful. And we had the ability to play music throughout the entire house. Now, this was back in the 80s. So, that's nothing for now. But back in the 80s, it was pretty high-tech, cutting-edge house. Now, I didn't really appreciate all those things. I mean, as a kid, how can you? But when my parents lost it all, they lost it all. And we went into, I think, a 20-foot travel trailer. 4 of us. Now, some of that stuff I blanked out. Some of that stuff I don't remember at all. But I do have snippets of that memory. And I went from this of feeling safe and secure to having nothing. And my parents were in a whirlwind and they were trying to figure things out. There's no way to communicate it to me or my brother. And we were really young. It's like 6 years old. I mean, what do you do with that? All of a sudden you have this beautiful, and so cramped and confined spots have even been an issue for me. And I now know where it's all coming from. It came from being able to go from this place of expanse to contraction. Think about even how that translates spiritually to us, mentally, emotionally, consciously, from expanded to a contract where there was no freedom. There was no freedom. It was contained in this small little thing. And I don't recall a whole lot of that, but I can tell that this has forwarded and has followed this lack of money and what it means. Because a lack of money to me is a cramped and confined spot that I had no way to deal with when I was a child. And my parents didn't have a way to deal with it with me, because how could they communicate it to me when it was their wrestle and struggle as well? That is a very difficult thing. So as I'm wrestling with this, it's coming to it where I don't trust myself when it comes to the financial end of it, but really, when it comes down to it, I don't trust the universe, God, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, because even that's been transformed over the years as I've been spiritually growing. But I don't trust that I will be provided for, even though my husband and I have had incredible things in our journey with trust. Finances that, things materializing out of thin air, $1 and a tank of gas, and then the next year we are offered a place to stay, and it's a long story for another day. But I've had this happen so many times that I've actually seen it in action. But what ends up happening is my husband is perfectly in ease in this, because this was a wrestle that when he lost everything in 2008, when the crash happened in 2008, there was something that just popped open in him, and this is not an issue. And literally he was stripped away of everything. He didn't even have a vehicle. Sometime he'll have to share that story, maybe or maybe not. But everything taken away from him, everything. He was doing it all by himself. And some sort of a cog connected in him. And he realized, as he was looking at the illusionary world and the banking system and the fiat currency, that it was just all an illusion, because he saw it as energy, as an exchange of energy. So what's happened is, the reality is that I've completely now understood that for trust to happen, like in finances, right? I've attached something to it. I have attached an emotion to it, because in itself, it's energy. It's just an exchange. But because I attached an emotion to it, because it's something that happened to me when I was a child and I didn't know what to do with it, every time money comes up, whether it's plenty or lack, there is an emotion attached to it, which then keeps me in a narrative, which then keeps me trapped as the 6-year-old wounded child that didn't have any way to understand what was happening to her life, because she was in the whirlwind of her parents. They were going through with it, what their learning lessons were, and they had no way to communicate it to me. Not at all. We say, hey, children are fine. They're going to bounce back. And yes, I had a roof over my head. Yes, I had clothes to wear. Yes, I had food on my table. But there was a long series of time that clothes were hand-me-downs, pass-me-downs, already worn clothing, things like that. And I, when you're a child, there are certain things you just don't even think about. You just don't register. But I remember when my mom went clothes shopping for me for school, and she didn't take me with her because she didn't want me to know where she got my clothes. Because usually we would go and we would try things on, and it was a grand event. But there were times it didn't happen, and she brought clothes home for me. And now I understand why, looking at it. But again, none of that was explained when I was a child. I had no idea what was going on in my world, and it got upside down and backwards. Really, even like when my family, because even when there was a divorce and remarriage, I'm being very open and transparent here with you guys, okay? Not that it even really matters, not that my history even matters, but really I'm explaining these things because if we can't dig down, if we can't identify where these stories and narrations are coming from, our inner child to flare up, we're never going to be able to love it, embrace it, reparent it, bring it back up so that it can have the power that it needs to function out of the system of duality, so that we can see it running, but we don't have to participate it because we don't have an emotional attachment to it. Until we deal with our childhood wounds, our shadow side, we are going to be attaching in some degree or another to the matrix. And this is what I'm facing. And these are some really, really deep roots for me that are very for me to go and back and visit. But I'm not shifting blame or projecting it outward, because I could project it outward on and on and on, blaming the banking system and, blah, 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 blaming my parents. Maybe they couldn't manage money. They had somebody steal from them, like lots and lots of money, their bookkeeper, and they had no idea. So when things fell apart, he took off with the money, basically with the business, and left my parents with nothing. Hence why we had to go into a 20-foot travel trailer. So I could blame him. But that wasn't my lesson to learn. I was just a little kid, and I needed to deal with this. So when I look back on it now, I can see where the root of that is. So now it's up to me to take time to go root it out and say, look, this is all anyway. I have the ability to manifest that what I need. It may not be in the moment because everything's just like slow on the delivery, but I am never going to be without. I mean, I have been shown this time and time again, but this root keeps raising its head. And I need to talk to my inner child and explain that this is an opportunity for us to manifest something beautiful. Because it is an opportunity. And we need to embrace it. And I know that this has been the boat anchor that has been tying me in and tying me down into this system, tying me into the things that are like binding me, that I need to be able to be let loose from. I always get this picture of like a hot air, right? And you have the basket and you have all of these things that are tethering you to the ground. And I keep cutting the rope on all of those things because we're meant to fly. And this is one last thing that I need to cut. And it's connected to the word trust. Because all of that wrestling on the inside is what is keeping us from doing that. So I don't know, there's probably many of you out there that have already conquered this one. We've been conditioned with money for a very long time. And being able to have a right relationship with it and understanding that it's an energy exchange. And that's all it is. Like, money doesn't have an emotion attached to it, right? There's no emotion attached to it. It's just energy. It's what we do with it and the emotions that we attach to it. So now that I understand this, where this wrestle is coming from, now I have something that I can do with it. And it's, there's a couple things I want to connect, and I'm not going to stay on here super long because I have a meeting with my beautiful friend Regina at 1. But I really felt that there was a couple words that I wanted to bring forward so we can just start, being open, honest, transparent, begin having these discussions. Because I know I'm not the only one that's wrestling with these things. I'm just talking about it out loud with you guys. So there's this word for man. Okay, now get over the whole sex thing. That's not what I'm talking about. What your gender is, what your body looks like, what you identify with. We are looking at the words, their vibrational frequency as energy. Okay, however you attach to it, that is your business. It's not mine. But as an energy signature, there's a word translated as man as Aleph Yod Shin, Ish. Now, if you've been following along with me, I did share on one of the Zoom meetings about the covenant in the beginning, because Spirit had me last week digging in the word covenant. And in the beginning was the covenant of fire. Now, Ish is Aleph Shin. Now, the Ish man is Aleph Yod Shin. And this is really a man of faith. One who knows, who found the power on the inside to be able to manifest because they are of the living fire, because it's Aleph Shin, the word for fire. Yod has been added in the middle, which the center of any word is the place of the heart. So the faith man, or you could call him the fireman or the man of fire, is one that has found the power that lies within, in your heart. Because when we manifest things, it's We come from the dude from the heart, connected to intention with the mind in order to create a new reality for us. Now, as I'm speaking, I'm okay. So if it's coming out, I'm hoping that maybe you can do something with this information, but I'm just being allowed out that I can hear it through my ears, and I'm pointing all the fingers. The faith man who is one that has been part of fire. Aleph means oneness. It means to be tamed, taught, that brings forth revelatory words that lift up. Sheen is that of the consuming fire that gives you power in your heart to deal with your fallen flesh, which is your beast ego, which is your wounded child, which is your shadow. So the consuming fire of the light coming in to deal with that. So the fan has gone through the process of oneness, tamed, taught, teach, fire, consuming the lower nature, and has been given power on the inside where there is. That's the place where Source, Creator, Abba dwells. That's the place of our soul. That is the inner man. So we have faith, and the concept of Hebrew and Aramaic is with expectation. Not just throwing it out there like I'm hoping a day, oh, I have faith that it'll happen. No, this is an expectancy. Put your intention out there with gratitude from the place of the heart. There is going to be a vibrational exchange where things are brought back in. But if you do not trust, again, going back to how I started with you, if you don't go within to deal with your own wrestle, you're going to divide yourself from that which is providing for you, that is stopping you from the creative energy that you need to manifest in your life to bring forth that which is necessary to continue to sustain life. Because here's that hidden part of Batak. The very last word, or the last letter, even though it's a het and it means to divide and separate, the esoteric side, it is the symbol for life. So on the inside, you wrestle, but then you find life because you rated from it. Trust is part of life. And when we find it, we can manifest those things in the world that we have distrust for, because in the center of it, if we are a fractal of Source, of Creator, and we do not trust ourselves, then we do not trust the Creator. That is the hardest part, the hurdle to overcome. Because again, all these revelations are meant to connect us and pierce us at our heart level so that the light can come in, pierce our heart, and then connect to our shadow so that we can bring them all into the one. My shadow, no trust. My higher self, trust. Let's bring them together in the heart. So I did say I was going to share with you what the very first time that is shared, I want to show you what this first verse is, because the law of first mention is really critical for us to grab a hold of what this word trust is encapsulating. Hello, Doug. It's nice to see you here. Very profound man, by the way. If you haven't listened to things that he's sharing, I highly suggest going over to his YouTube channel or going over to his Facebook page and take a look at what he is sharing, because there's a lot of paradigm shifting as he's looking at things in the ahead in the future as a Navi and bringing them into our now to challenge concepts that we really need. So thank you for being here, Doug. So I'm going to go in 852. Now, again, we need to divorce ourselves from the storylines. That's what gets us in the problems of being stuck within this matrix mindset, is we keep putting ourselves back in the narrative. So it doesn't matter what the storyline says. It doesn't matter what the Bible says was going on and why this verse was written. What matters is the content in the specific verse, why it's being said, where it is being positioned towards, and how is that going to be setting us free from that and ensnares us with a limited mindset through the egoic mind that keeps wanting connections that limit us, because we are limitless beings. Again, remember, I'm pointing all the fingers back to me, guys. I'm just talking out loud to hear myself, and I'm letting you hear my own thoughts through what I'm saying. It makes me look less crazy than having these talks by myself in the hall, into the house, into the walls, or to my cat. My cat doesn't really care. So I'm just sharing it out loud with you guys, okay? Makes me look less crazy. So we're going to go into Deuteronomy 28:25, and I'm going to do a screen share on here so that we can really take a look at this here. All right. So again, it doesn't matter what what the scenario is on this. Let's take a look. And I'm going to do this quick. I'm not going in letter by letter like I do during my gathering sessions. We're just going to look and see. So mechanical translation says, and they shall besiege you at all your gates until come down your walls, high and fortified, in which you trust in throughout your land, and they shall besiege you at all your gates throughout all your land, has given Yod-Heh Vav-Heh your God to, or your God you. Okay. So when we look at this, again, divorcing ourselves narrative, sometimes when we see the English translation, it can really be a hinder. So very first word. This is the root of the word Mitzrayim, which has been translated as Egypt. And this means basically a cramped and a confined spot. Very cramped, very confined. And it's saying that you need to connect to, because there's a revelation that is coming to you while you're in your cramped and confined spot. Because there's a journey that you need to take. It can raise you up from being poor and destitute. And again, when I say poor and destitute, this has to do with your wounded inner child side that is wanting to be raised up to be connected to the higher self. So you stay poor and destitute until you can connect to your higher self within the heart level, rendering him into neutrality. So when you're in a cramped and confined spot, it's because you're being besieged. And really, this is like taking it back, being transparent, this place with finances that I just shared with you, life story of my history that I'm trying to divorce my from in my now. I keep bringing it into my now, right? So cramped and confined. Well, the very next word, it says you, but as you can tell, there is no Hebrew equivalent to it because it's a lamed, it's standing alone, something that is poking you, prodding you, urging you on, the staff of authority meant to instruct you and raise you up so that you can learn. So that cough, you can grasp a hold and empty your cup. So grasping a hold of the power of the instruction that is coming to you while you're in your cramped and confined spot. So let me ask you, what is cramping and confining you right now? Limitless beings, yet our mind is to have limits, and those limits are things that we have put upon ourselves that is limiting our ability. Okay, so instruction is coming to you, so you empty your cup of that which is limiting you. Then when we get into the next word, looking at all, well, look at that, it has the bet there. So what are we emptying? We're emptying out the inside of us so that we can fill it with that which completes us. So now so this is the risen cough. So you emptied your cup. Now it's ready to be filled with what? Instruction. And we have the Bet Lamed, which Bet Lamed, so the cough is in the center. Bet Lamed is a heart that is anxious and fearful. Are you guys tracking with me here? Like I found this morning. Oh my gosh, this is so based on what I'm dealing with right now. Bring this verse to me that is telling me that I need hold of the power that lies in my heart, but yet I'm having issues with trust on the inside, bringing anxiety to my heart. Now, we've talked about the word gates before. If you went through my teaching series, As a Man Thinks, you know that the gates has to do with your mind. And it's absolutely fascinating, beautifully, wonderfully written this. Because right in the word gates, we have Sheen, which is fire. We've already talked about the consuming fire with the faith man, the Aleph Yod Sheen, the faith man. But this is the consuming fire that consumes that which is your enemy and foe. Are you kidding me? Your enemy and your foe is your mind, imaginations. So this consuming fire is to help you to see that which you need to raise you up out of that poor and destitute place as a wounded child, your shadow, so that you can be what? Well, Resh is first fruit, head, top, highest. And a little diamond over the top of it, in the definition of this particular canopulation mark, is a gift from God. But you have to allow the consumed fire to burn up that which is an enemy and a foe, which is the beast ego that is found in your brain, the throne of your brain, that is causing you to have a hiccup because you have an anxious heart, because the power lies by grasping it, that which is on the inside of you, which is your heart, the power that. And then we get into the Yod Kaf, the work and the deed of your hand that is necessary, that is giving you direction to empty your cup. Empty your cup of that which has been an enemy and a foe again, so that you can rise up and learn from that which was binding you as you've been set free. God has to deal with time. It could have been spelled Ein Tet, but this is Ein Dalet. This is also the same exact word that means a witness and a testimony. So when you have the eyes to see what is going on from the power, the place where you really should be seeing from, your heart, not your natural eyes, but viewing everything through the heart, it's giving you the power to see that fallen side of you, that wounded child, that shadow. And it's telling you need to go through the door, go into the inner man, so that when you go through this, that you can be a witness and a testimony. And what's going to happen? You go through the inner man, the walls are going to come down. What walls that you put up? And how do we do that? Well, Yared, by raising up us out of the wounded child, our shadow, by going to the inward man, so that we can connect to the covenant. Now, again, I explained to you, Bereshit is the covenant of fire, the oneness that is on the inside of us, which is the fire. You want a burning heart in oneness that then activates your throat chakra so that you can speak with authority? Then you need to work through your shadow to raise you up by that which you're feeding yourself. What are you electing to mature you? That is going to form you, a formidable process, because we're all ourselves right now. That's what we're doing. So by finding the covenant of fire, by within our heart, that fire to burn away everything that is causing us to not trust humanity, that separates us, this covenant is going to deal with the affected. And choma is wall, and it means to wall, and it's separating you from the chaos. Isn't that interesting? Separating you from the waters of chaos, but that is the place that you're going to find life. What do? Well, we have the word for death right here. Death is what separates us. It's having that fear of death, right? Well, if we get down to like survival mode, so I'm bringing it back to me here, bringing it back to the finances. If the finances aren't there, therefore, then I can't buy food. If I can't buy food and I can't eat, if I can't eat, then my body will die because it's an exchange of energy. Money is energy, exchanges for food energy. I consume food, which is energy, which sustains this vessel through energy, right? You can see that. That's a natural process that we all know. But it puts a wall up for me to think that, I mean, my goodness, we're already dying, right? That's what the flesh suit is about. Because we're supposed to learn lessons, but we're eternal beings. We don't ever die. That death is an illusion. We just change flesh suits for a different experience, for our maturation and growth. So again, when we take a look, the walls that are coming down are the ones that are connected to death and separation. Because really the power lies in the grasping a hold of emptying your cup of everything that is separating you to bring you into lifting you up. So look at this. Look at the next word. High and fortified, right? So high exacted, high exalted, high tall, high in position, proud haughty, loftiness. So when you hear proud and haughty, and every single word has it's duality. So depending on what side that you are looking at, they're both the same thing. It's our job to neutralize it. So what is this sharing with us here? Well, lifting us up, it is the twin revelation. The revelation here, and we have a revelation here. It's the revelation that comes to us that we can gather and assemble to instruct us on the inside, going to reveal to us how to connect Father, so we can find the covenant of to have a burning heart. That's what lifts us up. So what is lifting us up, our shadow, out of our wounded child, is revelation that is coming to us through what? Through what? We can't lose sight of this. Through the cramped and confined spot that we find ourselves in because we're limiting ourselves. You guys connecting that? Because then we have in which you trust. In which you trust. We have the word for fire. Fire upon the head. This is also the same word for happy and fortunate one. One who has gone fire and raised themselves up. You, as the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega, the Aleph and the Tav. Alpha and Omega is just Greek for Aleph and Tav. Okay, just to let you guys know. In the end, that is going to reveal to you that which has been hidden. And it will reveal, well, what has been hidden? Trust. Now, again, look, trust. This is the very first time it's used, and it's in its static potential, or static position full of potential. And why is it that way? Because you've got to go inside, and that you're divided and separated so that you can bring forth what? Look at this, in. So trust in you. I don't need to beat a dead horse here. I'm bringing it to life, okay? I'm bringing life to me. And I'm seeing this right here. Letter. The very next you, trust in. What am I putting my trust in? Inanimate object? Money? What I need to be putting the trust within me, because that's where all the power lies, within the heart. As a creator being, as a fractal of source, the power lies within my heart. Being grateful and having intent in mind to create my reality. So the word in, right there, we've got the bet, in. Inside of you is going. So the reason that this hasn't been activated is because there's fallen flesh here, which is your beast ego, which is your wounded inner child, which is your shadow, which is in and through your land. So that's why I'm saying that this has to do with all of us, and the lack of trust that not only do ourselves, but for the lack of trust that we have within each other, and the lack of trust that we have through Creator, through the earth, through Gaia, to bring forth that which is necessary to sustain us, because we found ourselves in a very confined spot that is no longer sustainable. That which we have been doing is not sustainable. That's why everything's falling apart right now, because it's not sustainable, because your land is meant to be a land full of light. But we have to hunt and chase for that which is necessary to pour out of, because why? Look at this. Then it just repeats it. So again, that which you need is on the inside, that is meant to complete you and make you whole. But if you find yourself, again, connecting to the revelation of why you're being squeezed, realize that you need instruction. Have this as it's poking, prodding you, goading you on to empty your cup. Empty out all that stuff that is binding you. And again, look, it repeats itself. At all your, again, hey guys, in case you didn't get it the first time, go within, grasp a hold the power of the teaching, because it's all about what is keeping you in your mind. So this time there's not the diamond above. It's saying that if you don't get it, if you don't realize this, then the consuming fire of your enemy and foe is going to continue until you get the vision that you need to empty your cup, because it's throughout your entire land. It's meant to be a land of light and oneness, raised up as first fruit leaders that hunt and chase after that which is necessary on the spiritual path, so they can truly empty their cup, have fire upon their head, to become one as one who is going to ascend to the throne. Throne is up here, called the seat. It's your amygdala. When you become your higher and your lower self, you no longer fear. This is the perfection of love. Love is everything. Love is the totality of all. Love is which provides us everything that we need. And I'm talking to myself right here. Love is everything that you need. And when you manifest by having gratitude from your heart and intent from your mind, your reality. This is the quantum beingness of who we are, because that has been given to us. Now, I want you to look at this right here. There's a title of this. Now, if you were to put noon, vav, noon, this would symbol, or the symbol noon. This is a word that life is having a strong base and foundation to stand upon. It means in air. It has to do with the continuation of life. But in this, the vav isn't there. Why is this so important? Well, you have seen in many other sharings where I show the tav on the prefix and the tav on the suffix, right? So you match the covenant of fire of mother and father. And I've already broken down to you before that Yod is mother and father. That Yeshua is Yod He, Shin Vav He. He is the manifestation of the fire, of the messenger of Yod He Vav He as pre-incarnate Yeshua, that is bringing forth the oneness message so that we can become, come to pass as is connected in our heart, that is walking through power that is given through the twin revelation that we connect in our heart. So what is given? When you get the tav on the inside, this is the covenant in connecting, in having the fingerprint, the sign, the frequency wave of Creator, of Abba, of Source, of that which gives us power within our heart, in our soul, so we can function within this realm without having to be a part of it, because you understand it. You don't understand it. I don't want to understand anything. That just means that I have the comprehension, but it's still suppressing me, because I don't want to have the zur continue to be in my life. We are being set free from the cramped and confined spot, which is the gates of our mind. When we really allow that fire to deal with that foe and enemy, it is a gift from God that has come from mother and father, Yod He Vav He, Elohecha, Lecha, or Lach, Checha. Now this is going to bring me to my final point. The first three letters here, three letters of the word the New Testament in Aramaic, Allah. Important for us to get, because we are, okay, so many of us have come to the comprehension that we are of the Elohim, right? But we need to move past that, because really what happens is when you realize that we are gods and goddesses, it puffs us up. Unless you're at the place where you will remain humble and teachable, realizing the only reason why that revelation came to you is for you to realize that you created a mess and now you need to clean it up. It was meant to point us responsible, but it was never to stay there, because Elohim has a end of it. Mem is a representation of waters of chaos. So as Elohim creating, we created waters of chaos. So this is saying that we are moving past that. We are doing the chaos that is within us, that is causing us to be cramped and confined, so that the power can be given to us to empty our cup, to instruct us to empty our cup. Because we need to even empty our cup into the fact that Elohim, because it sticks us to chaos. But we had to learn that in the linear, and again, I'm looking at Hebrew, right? Which is the divine masculine, divine feminine. It goes to Allaha. So Allah no longer has the mem. It's Aleph Lamed Hey, and when it's written, that's the root form. That's the static form. Most New Testament, it's Aleph Lamed Hey, Aleph, oneness. So what happens when we stay in Elohim and we stay in chaos? We see ourselves as separate gods and goddesses. Still keeps bringing chaos. So until we trust the process on the inside, we're going to wrestle and find life by unifying our divine masculine and our divine feminine, we are going to just be the Elohim and continue to create chaos. When the divine feminine comes in and we marry the two, because the power of the divine feminine is the light that comes in so that you can reach into your shadow, your wounded inner child, and bring it into the place of the heart. Are you hearing me here? Because I'm hearing myself loud and clear, and it's we need to disconnect from even being Elohim. I don't want any more chaos. And I certainly want that inner child that didn't understand what at a very tender age to be able to be brought back into a place of trust, of trusting this vessel right here, this entity, the one who is part of the many, to really come home back into the heart. Because this is where trust is generated. This is where life is. This is where passion is. This is where creation is. This is where light is. And it's okay for my wounded child to come out of the shadows because I'm giving it full attention in this. Because I am choosing to transition out of being Elohim, living in the waters of chaos. Hi, Ashley. I'm choosing to come out of the waters of chaos to get into oneness, unity, Allah. So when we look at Allah, it is oneness that instructs us and reveals us the way of one. Strong leader, teaching authorities that have the staff of authority, the rod of authority. And why do people have a rod of authority? Because of self-mastery. Self-mastery is connecting our higher and our lower together. There's no division. This is truly the act of teshuvah. Now, we have looked at repentance as an outward manifestation, right? So that we can be right relationships. So if I hurt you, I'm going to make amends to make it right. But do we ever stop to do that on the inside? Because of the distrust that we have, the disconnect from the higher and the lower, shaming our little wounded child who just wants to be loved, brought in, healed, whole, so it can begin to trust. So if we stay as Elohim, we're going to continue in the waters of chaos. And we're going to surround ourselves in the waters of chaos, saying that I am a God or I'm creating my reality. That's fine and dandy. But if you're still doing it from the place of sin, you're still bringing chaos because you still have a wounded child that you don't want to see, that you're not bringing back into the sheepfold, into the place of your heart, because you're not even shepherding yourself right. It's very difficult. If you're not willing to deal with it, then why in the world are you trying to shepherd a flock when you got your own messes that you need to clean up and your own wounded child? Because if you set yourself up on a platform, you're going to say, you can't touch me because I'm teaching and I'm the leader of the flock. And so therefore, what you're doing is you're just putting a spiritual mask on that is really a mask of the ego, a spiritual ego. And it's still not dealing with the root issue of the wounded child. You put a little bit of pressure on. Again, I'm pointing all the fingers back at me here. You put a little bit of pressure on me in the areas that I haven't dealt with that wounded child, finances, and then you get to see me not in my shalom. And you guys don't really get to see that much because that's, unfortunately, my poor husband, that's a gift, right? Because he gets to see me wrestle and he gets to see me overcome. Even rephrasing that. Getting to see the wrestle, to see the overcoming nature of going, aha, I connected. Remember, I was sharing with you a couple weeks ago about the revelation of aha and ahava, that place of love is the revelation that happens on the inside. So we have to connect the two. And that whole verse was like, you're going to have sieges. You're going to continue to do this until you empty your cup of that which is separating you, which is in your mind, which is part of the illusion that is causing you to not trust. Because again, trust is something that has to be done something with, right? It needs to be activated. And then the resolve is in the letters. It's going to stay static until you go on the inside and deal with your wrestle, so that you can connect what you were separated from, your higher and your lower self. Then that does produce the trust. And when that produces the trust, it changes. I can see I have a weak signal, so it's probably being herky-jerky right now. But when we have that trust and we establish that on the inside, then outwardly our reality is going to manifest differently. And I'm speaking this so that I can hear it. And if it helps you, amen. And if it doesn't, flush it. We're all in different places, and I'm sharing, I'm not telling. These are things that I'm going through, and I want to be open and honest. And yes, Doug, I'm sharing this. I'm glad you're still here. Totally agree. And so the beautiful thing that I see about this, Doug, and everyone else, is that when I'm through this wrestle, nothing will stop me, because my wrestle is your wrestle. And every single wrestle that I overcome is one that you overcome. So whatever wrestle, the greatest service that you can do for humanity right now, the greatest thing that I can do for humanity right now, is to deal with my inner child and not shame her, not guilt her, and love her, bring her back into the sheepfold, and let her know that she can trust. Because chaos, as Elohim, is not going to be part of my life anymore. Because I am activating and I'm dealing with my wrestle so that I can move into becoming Allaha. One with the Mother, one with the Father, because inward instruction revealed that we are all one, connecting the higher, divine feminine, to the lower, the divine masculine, the linear and the spiral that brings forth all of creation on the inside of me at the micro level to affect the macro. As within, so without. As without, so within. From the large to the small, because this is even echoing out in our solar system, in our universe. So if we want to be able to see these things manifest and change to affect us in our universe, to deal with the things that keep coming in. This is really and white, the light's coming in. The only reveal your shadow, because somewhere along the line, your wounded inner child is stuck in a hell loop of going round and round, and trauma showing up as your shadow. It's being triggered. So don't ignore. I can't ignore this one. It keeps repeatedly, and it gets screaming louder at me, because it's my responsibility to no longer bring the chaos, but to bring the resolve by finding it within me first. So I hope this helped you guys. It helped me talking it out and being able to see a scripture so beautifully defining it for me, to empty my cup of the things that are bringing chaos, so that I can establish the trust that I need in a different reality. Because it affects you. As you create, it affects you and me. So make the transition. Let's get stuck on being a god and goddess, because Elohim is that, but it's still chaotic waters. Need to be resolved. Let's get in. Let's allow inward instruction to reveal to us the shadow side, so we can embrace it and lovingly bring it back home into the place of our heart, instead of it being separated and divided, because it is one with us. And you can't stay in light for too long, because if you're in too much light, the darkness is going to come to try to bring homeostasis into oneness, the place of neutrality, the balance between the two, which is the narrative you find. So thanks for listening. I love you very, very much. I hope this helped. If you want to post your comments on this thread when this live stream is done, I'd love to see it. And we'll have a conversation like this, something similar this weekend, as we continue on, all healing our wounds so that we can deliver ourselves from that which holds us back and is the guard and prison keepers of our mind, the beast ego, child, our shadow that just needs love. Shalom, shalom, namaste.